Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto and Ino fused with Kurama and they become half demons part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Cage of Kyuubi and said, "Okay Fox, we got a deal, what do we do?" Kyuubi said, "I just need for you and the kid here to cut both or your hands and let the blood between you mix as you hold hands. I will channel the chakra into both of you and have Nibi's spirit merge with yours kitten. It will be painful but you must keep holding hands until you pass out. When you wake up you both will be in your new demon bodies on the day you became genins. Remember this. You won't be able to go back again, so make sure you like what changes you make and have a happy life." Ino released the jutsu and then she pulled out a kunai and cut both of her hands. Naruto did the same, but this time Kyuubi did not start healing it. They put their hands together with the fingers intertwined and red and yellow chakra mixed with blue started forming around the hands. Ino was the first to start screaming but continued to hold on. A moment later Naruto also started screaming as the pain hit him also. They screamed until they could not breathe any longer and passed out still holding hands. Use of acupuncture and medicine, and Zabuza was set up sir for his crime against mist. Kisame killed the Mizukage son, so the Mizukage ordered the death of all 7 of the mist swordsmen. Zabuza attacked the Mizukage after he ordered their deaths. The third thought for a moment and said, "If you can get them I will grant it as long as they do not permanently hurt or kill any of our ninjas." Naruto smiled and said, "Thanks old man." The third sighed and said, "It's getting late and I need to rest and think." Dismissed. Ino walked over and kissed Naruto and whispered, "I love you." Naruto smiled and whispered, "I love you also." Everyone started to leave and Inoichi walked over to Naruto and said, "If you hurt her I will kill you." Ino, the next day Naruto got to his team training ground at 5 a.m. like Kakashi said, but he did eat this time. When he got there he noticed Sakura sitting there, but she had dark rings under her eyes like she was up all night. Naruto walked over and said, "Hi." Sakura looked up at him and sat in peace for a few minutes. Finally Sakura said, "Naruto, why did you want to become a ninja in the first place?" Naruto sat there for a moment and said, "I have not had the best of lives here because I have not known my parents like most people and had to learn by myself what life is really like. I have seen the best of the world and the worst. I wanted to be a ninja so that others won't have to live through what I did. My dream is to protect what is truly precious." Tell me Sakura, do you know what it is to be truly strong? Sakura said, "You mean to be able to break boulders, trees and stuff like that with their hands? Then yes." "Why?" Naruto sighed and said, "No Sakura, that's not what I meant. In every other country but ours they believe ninjas are nothing but tools. Here we have a different outlook in that point. We believe that ninja are as important as anyone else and they are precious to each of us. Someone once summed it up to me as a simple sentence that I have taken to heart: you can only become truly strong when you are protecting what is most precious to you. When you are doing that you will find a way to do what must be done so that even if you die those that you left behind will be able to continue on for you, because even if you are alone on a battlefield your precious person, or place is still there. Those here today and the ones from tomorrow." Sakura looked at Naruto like he had a second head and was awed by his speech. She sat there quietly for a few minutes and said, "I think you have just helped me solve what I want to be a ninja for, thank you." Naruto said, "I hope so, and I hope you always remember that saying, because someday you may have to put the needs of those of the village before the needs of yourself. Remember that we are a team now, no matter what happens elsewhere, but we are also ninja of the hidden leaf and we must work together to ensure our village has a future." Sakura said, "So when did you become so wise?" Naruto said, "I have always been wise, it's book smarts I have been stupid with." You cannot really judge a ninja by book knowledge because if your enemy has read the same thing as you, then they will know how to defeat you. You remember my prank on the monument? Sakura shook her head and Naruto said, I did that for training. Sakura asked, training? Naruto said, how hard do you think it is to get by security, paint something in clear view, then escape and led 4 Abnu and 8 Chunin around the village for 3 hours in a wild chase? Sakura thought for a moment and said, I still don't see how that is training. Naruto said, that's what I was talking about earlier. You are the biggest booksmart of our class, but I am not picking on you. What I mean is training is stealth, speed, stamina, chakra control, infiltration and trap skills. I worked on stamina, speed and chakra control outrunning the people chasing me, and stealth, trap skills, and infiltration with my actual pranks. Sakura thought for a minute and said, I can actually see that working. Why are you telling me this? Naruto thought for a moment and said, we are teammates now and we have to work together and support each other. I am strong, you are smart, and Sasuke is a combo of both, but no one of us can hope to defeat a stronger person if we don't work together and support each other. Also, I think that you and Ino should try and work out your friendship. Sasuke showed up and looked like he had no sleep and sat down against a log. Naruto decided to try his chakra control, so he got up and said, Sakura, Sasuke, you both look like you are dead tired, so why don't you both get some sleep? I am going to work on my chakra control for a little bit on the stream over there and will wake you when Kakashi gets here. I doubt he will be here for a couple of hours if yesterday was any indication. Sakura smiled and mouthed thank you and laid against a tree and tried to sleep. Sasuke just HMPED and smirk as he leaned against a tree. Naruto walked over to the stream and started gathering chakra to his feet before he took a step out onto the water and slowly got the control right. He was thinking, this new body is great. My control has gone up a lot and I feel stronger, but I don't know how much stronger. I suppose I can find out later. Let's see if how long I can keep this up. Sasuke saw Naruto walking on water and became enraged again that the Dobi did something else he could not. He sat there and stared at Naruto walking on water. Suddenly 10 more Narutos appeared and also started walking on water, and 10 more started tree climbing. 3 hours later Kakashi showed up and found Sakura sleeping, Sasuke looking ready to kill with a twitch in his eyebrows, and 21 Narutos were working on water, walking or tree climbing. Kakashi smirked beneath his mask and said, okay Naruto, cancel the clones and come over here. Sakura, wake up. Sakura woke up as Naruto walked back and Naruto asked, feel better? Sakura just nodded and said, Sakura, before we begin, why do you want to be a ninja? Sakura thought for a moment and said, to protect that which is precious. Naruto helped me open my eyes to that this morning and I understand it now. Kakashi smiled as he looked at Naruto and said, okay team. This is your test. I have 2 bells. You have until noon to get them from me. The one who does not will be sent back to the academy. Come at me with intent to kill. Begin. All 3 disappeared. Suddenly Naruto appeared and smirked as he ran at Kakashi. Kakashi sighed and ducked under a kick and said, you should never let an enemy get behind you. 1,000 years of death. As he stuck his finger in Naruto's butt. Just as he did that, the Naruto in front of him exploded and blasted him into the air. The real Naruto appeared above him and said, Bunshin Daibakua Uzumaki combo, as he kicked Kakashi back toward the ground. Kakashi replaced himself with a log as he hit the ground. Naruto disappeared again after he landed and hid in the trees. Sakura ran up to Naruto and said, Naruto, stop. I figured out the test. Remember what you said this morning. We are a team. That is the test. Teamwork. Let's find Sasuke. Naruto smiled inwardly as he followed Sakura to where they could hear fighting. When they found Sasuke, Kakashi was standing over him and his head was above ground. Sakura said, Naruto, you distract Kakashi while I get Sasuke. Okay. Naruto nodded and created 25 clones, and they all changed into Jia with copies of Ika Ika Paradise in their hands and started screaming, "Kakashi, my eternal rival. I have unlocked the way to pass the springtime of youth across the world. Join me as we will spread the passion of youth to the world." Kakashi, seeing 26 Jias charging at him, took off running. One of the Jia clones stopped chashing him and ran back to Sakura and Sasuke and released the henge. Sakura said, "Please tell me those eyebrows were exaggerated." Naruto said, "You wish, I seen them yesterday," and Kakashi did everything he could to run from him. Sakura said, "At least we don't have to worry about someone like that our age." Naruto said, "Actually Sakura, he had a mini-him with him yesterday." Sakura thought for a moment before screaming and fainting. Kakashi reappeared wearing a green spandex suit like Jia and said, "Naruto, you are a dead man," and charged at Naruto. Naruto sidestepped and tripped Kakashi. Sasuke took the distraction and tried to get the bells only to miss and got his belt instead. With Kakashi falling and his belt stopping, Kakashi lost his pants and had Ika Ika Paradise boxers on. Sakura woke up and saw Kakashi and screamed, "Pervert," before inner Sakura took over and started beating the hell out of Kakashi. Naruto leaned over and grabbed the bells and handed one to Sasuke and said, "Sakura, here," as he handed her the belt. Naruto then reached into Kakashi Kuniya holster and pulled out his Ika Ika Paradise Volume 14 and said, "Come on, let's go back to the training logs while we wait on him to wake up." Sasuke and Sakura followed Naruto, who was reading the book, as they went back to where they started. Sakura said, "Naruto, how can you stand to read that stuff?" Naruto looked at her and said, "Sakura, I admit I am a little perverted, but I only think about one woman who I hope I can live the rest of my life with. I am sure you just don't want to admit you have the entire collection at home." Sakura looked away red-faced and said, "I don't know what you are talking about." Naruto said, still reading, "So if by some chance I could get a hand on a signed copy of all the books from the author, you would not want it?" Sakura started twitching and said, "I do not have to dignify an answer to that." Naruto said, "That's a good scene, but Ika Ika Paradise Volume 16 is better." Sakura said, "There is no Volume 16. Naruto said, "Not in press yet, but I have already read the unedited version of it." Kakashi appeared and said, "Is it as good as number 9? Naruto said, "9 was good, but Slug Goddess beat the hell out of him, so he had to edit that one. 16 is better because he got the Wind Mistress and the Red-Eyed Warrior going into a threesome with the hero of the story." Kakashi sighed and said, "Well, you all passed because you all had teamwork. Remember this though. Those who follow the rules are trash. Those that leave their friends behind are worse than trash. Can I have my book back now, Naruto?" Naruto said, "Yeah, here you go. If I can, I will get you and Sakura both a signed copy for your collections if I see him," as he hands Kakashi his book. Kakashi giggled like a school girl before he left in a puff of smoke. Sakura turned her back to Sasuke and said, "Mouth thank you," as she turned back to Sasuke and said, "Sasuke, can I walk home with you?" Sasuke walked away and said, "No." Naruto saw Sakura get sad and said, "Hey Sakura, if you want you can come with me to find Ino." Sakura smiled and said, "Thanks Naruto, but I am tired, so I will go home for now. I will think about what you said earlier." And she left. Naruto started to leave, but his senses caught the smell he was becoming to like as he saw Ino heading toward him from town. Naruto ran to her and hugged her and gave a kiss and said, "Did you pass Aegean?" Ino said, "Same as last time. Shika used his shadow to stop him. Choji became a distraction and I took over his body and got his SIGs. Yours the same." Naruto said, "Actually number. We passed, but this time I gave Sakura enough clues to figure it out, and I even helped her start seeing what it really means to be a ninja. I think she might come see you soon to try being friends Aegean." Ino smiled and said, "That would be good. So have you been getting any of his memories?" Naruto said, "I have gotten a few but not many. Most of them come when I am trying to figure something basic out. I don't think he had very much in knowledge of jutsu. He does have a few since I can tell he transformed into a human before, but I don't know much. What I can tell is he was mostly raw power. What about you? Ino said. Basically the same, but that's fine. We don't have to worry about not being us. You hungry? I got a sudden craving for seafood. Naruto smiled and said, I know one thing you are probably going to love. I found all demons love ramen. Remember Gaara and me? Ino said, how can I forget? 110 bowls between the two of you, and Gaara stuck Hiyash with the bill. As she started to laugh as they walked toward Ichiraku. As they walked they saw people giving Naruto the looks and a few sent toward Ino. Naruto sighed and said, hate news always spread the fastest. Ino grabbed his hand and said, just ignore them. They can't do anything about it, no. So when do you think people will learn your real name? Naruto said, I don't know. Probably after I go get mom and my grandparents. Ino said, so how you going to tell them about you? Naruto said, I will cross that bridge when I get to it. They continued in silence for a few minutes until they got to Ichiraku. When they sat down, Ayame said, oh, Naruto, it's good to see you again, and who is this, your girlfriend? Naruto said, it's good to see you, Eiji and Ayame. This is. Ino said, since Naruto trusted you and your dad, can you both come here? Naruto shot her a questioning look and she squeezed his hand. Ayame nodded but was curious and went and got her dad. Nobody else was there because they left when Naruto arrived. A few moments later Ichiraku came and said, so what is it you needed to see me about? Ino said, your daughter wanted to know if I was Naruto's girlfriend, and since you both know about his situation and respected him, I wanted to show my respect to you. This is a secret to only a select few, but he is my fiancé. As she showed her hand and they saw the ring tattoo on her finger and saw Naruto had a matching one. Ayame had hearts in her eyes and Ichiraku smiled and said, the ramen gods have smiled on you, boy. So what would you like? I will refer to you as a couple until it becomes public knowledge, okay? First bowl is on the house. Naruto smiled and said, 10 miso for me. Ino said, I will take 1 seafood with extra meat, please. Ayame said, no problem, as her dad returned to cooking. A few minutes later their order was done and they started to eat. Ino said, Naruto, I hate to admit it, but you were right about ramen. Naruto smiled and said, it calms the savage beast. Ino punched him in the arm and said, I am not savage. I am refined. Naruto chuckled and said, I agree. As he finished eating. After they ate they went back to Team 7 training ground and Naruto said, well, I think we should start seeing how good these bodies are. Ino nodded and she started practicing her katas from her fighting style she picked up when she was older. Naruto started off with trying to form a Rasengan. He was able to make it no problem. He then put his hands in a seal and said, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and 1,000 clones appeared. Ino stopped and said, Naruto, can you teach me that? Naruto said, sure, just let me get them started. Okay, I want half of you to do tree climbing and the other half water walking. Go until I dispel you or you run out of chakra. All the clones started practicing and Naruto turned to Ino and said, the only seal is put your hands like this and focus your chakra into it. The more chakra, the more clones. I will tell you now. Anything a clone does you learn when it is dispelled, so you could read an entire library in one day if you could make as many as I can. But when you release them, do them in small bunches. Too many and you get a headache or pass out from all the knowledge, but it helps greatly with chakra control. Ino tried it and the first clone looked sick. Naruto said, a lot more chakra. Put as much as you can into it. Ino closed her eyes and concentrated before doing the seal's Aegean, and when she opened her eyes 200 clones were there. Naruto smiled and said, well done. If you want to make more and get stronger, have them do what mine is doing. Ino nodded and told her clones what to do. Naruto said, After I get paid I am going to buy some weights to help my stamina and speed. You want some? Ino thought for a moment and said, yeah, I think I will, but won't it cost more than you have to buy that many weights as you used to carry? Naruto said, I am going to buy some quick release weights, and since Ero Sanin taught me sealing I can put chakra seals on them. Ino smiled and said, boy, by the time we get done we will be unstoppable. Naruto smiled and said, yeah, I can't wait. Anyways, let's go and practice sparring for now and we will dispel our clones after we are done. Naruto got into the hummingbird style like he learned was his dad's style. Ino got into the tiger style which she was remembering from Nibi's memories. Naruto said, I don't recognize that style. Ino thought for a moment and said, I remember it from Nibi's memories. It's called tiger style. My body naturally got into it for some reason. Naruto thought for a moment and switched his style and said, I can recall this style also. It's called fox style. Let's try it out. Ino nodded and together they charged at each other. What he did not tell you is by that time Tsunade and Jiraiya had already died in battle and she died moments later after her confession. He never got to really experience a family because of that. I know he is always thinking about others first, but I request if you can get them, tell them the truth before the war. I know this might cause trouble for you and I am sorry, but I just wanted to request it because Naruto is too stubborn to ask for himself. I guess it runs in the family. The third sighed and said, I will see what I can do. Do not mention anything until I tell you. Dismissed. Ino said, thank you Hokage-sama. I hope everything works out and we all survive because I want you to be the one who performs our wedding when it comes time. The third chuckled and said, I would be glad to. Naruto has always been like a grandchild to me and nothing would make me happier. Ino left and the third sighed before starting to write out 2 long letters that would probably get him killed. Far below leaving, Kakashi said, damn, as they saw his ship getting further away. Sasuke collapsed from chakra exhaustion for using too many jutsu. Naruto ran and jumped off the bridge while biting his thumb and going through some seal before shouting, Kuchio's no jutsu, and suddenly a giant 7-tailed blue fox appeared under Naruto standing on top of the water and the fox said, what can I do for you Naruto-sama? Naruto pointed to Gato who was standing on his boat scared said, Silga, I want you to put him in your ultimate genjutsu on him for me so he will suffer before he dies. I could have you just kill or eat him but straight killing him is too good and he is so vile I bet he would make you puke. The fox nodded that waved its tails and then Gato started screaming and clawing at his own body before stabbing himself with his own sword. The fox then took Naruto back to the bridge and he jumped on it and the fox said, before I return master, the others are wondering when the marriage between yourself and Lady Ino will be between the 2 lands. Both us and the cats are all ready to join lands in our world. Naruto looked sheepish as everyone was looking at him and said, it will be soon Silga, for now just prepare the lands. We both will be coming after the marriage here for a ceremony in Makai for our people there. Also please put the slugs and toads on the special guest list. Silga nodded and said, very well Lord, Gambunta has been trying to find you for some time anyways Lord and contacted our kind after hearing about the new Lord. Remember time in our world is different than yours so he knows you and said once you sign it he will grant you permission, and with that he disappeared. Sakura said, Naruto what was that all about and what is this about a marriage between Ino and you? How come he acted like you were his king or something and what do you mean going to Makai wherever that is? Naruto sighed and said, Sakura, I will explain it all to you since Kakashi already knows when we get home and talk to the Hokage in private. Do not mention anything about what happened here before then especially to Sasuke. You will find out why later. I am tired from summoning, Flame Shushin several times, Rasengan and Rasenshuriken as well as Kajbunshin. I am going back to the house and rest. I think we all could use it since Gato's dead and Wave Country is free. And with that he left. The bridge was finished a few days later and Sasuke was still in the dark about what happened after he passed out. Sakura still wanted to know but would wait. Naruto had become good friends with Haku and Kakashi got Zabuza hooked on Ika Ika Paradise. Sakura had also gotten friends with Haku. Sasuke became even more jealous since then and learned that Naruto had won the contest with 71 kills. Zabuza had 54, Kakashi had 53, and Haku had 20 and he only had 3. He had hurt more but not kill. The trip back was not eventful. When they got back, Kakashi released Team 7 for the rest of the week to rest as he took Zabuza and Haku to the Hokage. Naruto started to go see Ino but Sakura stopped him and said, "I want to come with you so I can talk to Ino also." Naruto nodded and Sasuke went home to brood and think of killing his brother. When Naruto got to Ino's home, she was at the cash register and saw Naruto followed by Sakura and said, "Hey, how was your mission? Did things work out?" Naruto said, "Yeah, they worked out and we saved Zabuza and Haku this time. Some stuff happened and Sakura knows too much not to tell her the truth. I told her she would have to wait till we talked to the old man since he wants to know who knows the truth." Ino looked sheepish and said, "I think he might be out of the hospital now." Naruto said, "What happened? Why is he in the hospital?" Ino smiled and said, "I kind of requested something before I went to Suna and yes, I gave Gaara the message, but when we got back he had already done what I requested." Naruto said scared, "Ino, what did you request?" Ino said, "A lot happened. Your mom and grandparents are here and they already know the whole truth from me, including the new about us. Your mom and grandma beat the shit out of the Hokage and your grandpa proposed after he gave up restaining your grandma. Surprisingly, she accepted after he agreed to pay all of her debts and cut back on his pervertiveness. Big news is the council had a field day after they found out about your ancestry. Danzo was executed for attempting to assassinate the Hokage in the hospital and Root was disbanded. Hiash surprisingly put you under the Hyuga protection and you already had the 3 other clans backing you. Shino's family also put you under your protection, but that was after his dad discovered the truth about us from his bugs and asked the Hokage for information. He holds no judgment against us and said he would keep it a secret for only his clan to know and they would prepare accordingly. You have already gotten a damn fan club also because your old burden was made public knowledge. Also, your stuff has been moved to your family homes and you have been given access to your inheritance, including your family name." Sakura said, "Will someone please tell me what's going on?" Ino said, "I suppose I will, but let's go to the Hokage office. Some people are wanting to see Naruto. Mom, I am leaving." And the 3 left after Sarah came in to relieve Ino. A few minutes later and a lot less looks of hatred at Naruto, they made it to the Hokage office. The ABNU let them in after calling Naruto, Kazama-sama. When they got there, Naruto smiled as he saw who was there. Shizune spit out her water she was drinking. Tsunade dropped the book in her hand and Jiraiya was looking with pride. Kakashi was still there along with the 3rd. Naruto said, "Hello Mom, Tsunade Bakken, Ero Sanin. It's good to see you all." A vein appeared on Tsunade's head and she said, "I am not that old." Shizune slowly walked to Naruto, gave him a hug and said, "I am so sorry, I was told you died. If I had known I would have been there for you. Please forgive me." Naruto hugged her back and for the first time in 2 lifetimes finally knew the love of being held by a mother, and all of his emotional walls he built up gave way and he cried tears of joy. The Hokage said after a few minutes of him finally stop crying and being hugged by both of his grandparents, "Sorry for interrupting the moment, but I understand from Kakashi that Sakura knows too much and is needing some answers, so I will say this once. This is a class secret. Only a select few know the entire truth and for them to tell you means they trust you. Do not show that trust was bad, Sakura. Understand?" Sakura nodded and Ino said, "Okay, what do you know so far so I can fill in the blanks?" Sakura said, All I know is somehow Naruto summoned a fox that kept acting like Naruto was king and said you were getting married and something about a place called Makai. Ino nodded and said, long story short. You know that Kyuubi was killed by Naruto dad the Yodime. Sakura looked at Naruto in awe and then Ino said, that is a lie. The truth is he could not kill the demon. Instead he had to seal it into Naruto the day he was born. Yodime died doing it and the third changed Naruto name to keep him safe from his dad's enemies. He also told his family that Naruto died during the attack. Tsunade and Jiraiya has a love-hate relationship and they were Yodime parents in secret. Shizune over there is Naruto mom. Anyways, back to now. Naruto and I are both from almost 13 years in the future. A lot of stuff happens and all of our friends and family died. Our home was destroyed. We were given a way to come back but we would have to pay a price which we both did. Sakura said, if you're from the future can you tell me about myself? Ino sighed and looked sad and said, you apprentice under the Godime Hokage Tsunade and become the best medic under her. I also learned medical jutsu but I was more of an interrogator. You want like this but you were killed by the traitor Sasuke. Sakura said, why would Sasuke do that? Naruto said, to try and master his bloodline. The Sharingan has a level past the third Kama. Sasuke will do anything to get it. He betrays our village several times and probably will do it again if we can't stop it. Sakura, you have to understand his brother screwed his head up so bad when he killed the rest of his family there is no saving him. We tried everything. You offered him love, your virginity, you even offered to go with him and betray your home for him and he just ignored you. The requirement to get that level of his bloodline is you have to kill your best friend who you must emotionally care for. He first tried to kill me but the Kyuubi kept saving my life. He then tried making false friend in Sound Village and killing them and it still would not work. He then thought that maybe it had to be someone who loved him and killed you when you were doing charity work at the hospital in Wave Country when we started a new village there called Seedling. Sasuke never emotionally cared for anyone so he was never able to get the final level before I was forced to kill him to save your daughter. Sakura smiled and felt sad at the same time and said, can you tell me who was my daughter dad was? Ino snickered and said, I could but you won't believe me until you get older and learn what a sweat yet eccentric guy he can be. Especially after he changes. Sakura huffed and said, so what was the price you both paid? Ino said, I will tell you and show you but I want you to know we are still your friends and still care for you and everyone else. Okay. Sakura nodded and Ino and Naruto shapeshift into their true forms and Naruto said, the price was Kyuubi gave his life and his lover's Nibi who was in another dimension fatally wounded. I became the new Kyuubi and the king of all demons and Ino became the new Nibi the two-tailed cat. We gave up our mortality because we will never grow. We can still die several different ways but never of old age. To save our home and precious people that was the price we paid. As for the marriage thing before we came back I proposed and she accepted. Seeing as we are both the head of the fox and cats our marriage will mean the people in Makai will join as one kingdom, as they both change back into their normal appearance. Sakura smiled and said, I understand why you did not want Sasuke to know about anything now and I will keep both of your secrets and I still think of you both the same. Tsunade said, if that's true I have two questions. The first is what will happen to any children you have and my second question is any way to make us live forever. Naruto smiled and said, well, the thing is I found this out. I may be the king of demons but humans only call us demons because we are so strong and scary in our long lives. We are just lesser being under the supreme lord of all life, whatever you want to call him. Think of me as the Hokage and the other tailed demons are my council and I am over a village. I can ask Supreme Lord for certain people to come to my village and if he agree that is what I plan to do. I plan on asking for Dad to be released from the Shinigami and request my family and friends to be sent to my land when you leave this world. I can't take you while you live here unfortunately. One thing I should tell you is that the people there look like normal people, but when summoned, the summon change their forms. That's how all the tailed beast came here first. Humans summoned them wrong and they could not go back, so they got pissed and attacked humans. Shizune said, so that means I will get to see Arashi again and we can be a whole family. Naruto smiled and said, I hope so, but I don't want any of you to go out and try to die because I want you here for as long as possible. As for children, we can't have children here. They will be full-blooded demons and still appear human, but they will gain attributes like Ino and I as they get older, so they will have to live in Makai. The third Sidon said, what about if you had a human wife, Naruto? No offense Ino, but I just need to know if he could have human children if he had a mortal wife. Ino said, what do you mean? Are you saying I am not good enough for him or that I can't marry him? Shizune said, I know what he's talking about. Arashi was asked the same question. Being the last heir of the founder of the village, Naruto falls into the clan resurrection act. The council could not pressure Arashi into it much since Tsunade was still young enough to have children and her brother was alive until she was 18, but Naruto is the last who could produce a child and possible ly carry one of either bloodline. Ino stopped her ranting and said, I understand, but I don't like it. What are his options? Because yes, he can produce a normal child who will have heightened senses and a lot of chakra. The third said, since you are already getting married, you will have 2 years together before the council can do anything. After that, if you have not produced a child, he will have 1 year to find at least 3 wives to produce an heir who have 2 years to conceive. Adoption is not an option either. If after that 1 year he does not find 3 wives, the council can arrange for him to marry someone of their choosing. It will continue like that until he dies, unable to have children or an heir is born. It all starts the day he turns 14. Naruto walked over to Ino and held her and said, no matter what, Ino, I will always love you most and first. I don't like it either, but I guess this was what has to happen. Look at it this way. You will be my first. You may have to share me for the next 50 or so years, but after that we will have all of eternity to have the family we wanted. Ino laughed and said, well, at least you can get tips on how to please me forever this way. I think I get the better deal. You will have to put up multiple PM sing women. Everyone laughed while Jiraiya scribbled down on his notebook before being sent sailing through the window. Naruto got a look in his eye and Ino said, what? Naruto said, I am tired of feeling knacked. I want to get it Aegean. As he looked at Tsunade. Everyone looked at him confused and she realized what he meant and said, why am I not surprised? Naruto said, you know what it means to me. Ino said, yeah, I remember what you did to that tried to steal it. You stuck a kunio with an exploding tag up his butt with a 5-second fuse. Tsunade said, what are you both talking about and why are you looking at me like that, Naruto? Naruto said, I am not looking at you. I am looking at it around your neck. I won that curse necklace when I earned the Rasengan in 1 week and wore it until I was 25 and came back in time. I feel knacked without it. Oh, are you still afraid of blood? Because if you are, we need to get over that quick. Tsunade said, you are my grandson, but you don't tell me what to do. I am still strong enough to bend you over my knee and spank you, brat. Naruto laughed and said, man, it's good to have you back, Granny. Tsunade eyebrow twitch and Jiraiya walked back in and said as he handed a copy of Ika Ika Paradise Volume 15 inches, this is to help you on your wedding night. Naruto looked at the title and said, already read it. Tsunade said, so you are a pervert. Naruto said, I am not a pervert in the general terms. I only read the stupid books for certain reasons. The first was I was apprentice under him for 3 years while hiding for my life and had to wind up writing 2 volumes just to get him to train me because we did not know until I was 21 that we were related when my mom died in my arms, confessing the truth and how she only found out a few months before because of a surgery I had to have to save my life. Second, I read it because of a lack of education. I was a complete idiot when it came to anatomy. Sakura said, what do you mean an idiot when it came to anatomy? You made that pervert buster jutsu sexy no jutsu and everything looked right to me. Naruto said, simple. If you ever removed the fog that covered certain areas, there was no nipples and the bottom was blank. I perfected it years later. And my third reason for reading that stupid book is I used scenes from those books to help me infiltrate a couple of slave rings for missions. As for personal use, I rather have the touch of a real woman than my imagination. Especially when you had a 10,000-year-old pervert in your body that got his jollies from making rude comments and sending perverted images of all of your female friends. That's one thing I am glad he's gone about. And with that sentence you could feel the killer intent coming of both Sakura and Ino. Ino said, "You never mentioned that before Naruto," as she started rolling up her sleeve like Sakura was. Naruto said, "I never wanted those images. Remember Ino, I hate perverts and respect women." Sakura said, "So who was it the fox sent images to you of?" Ino said, "Yes, I want to know." Naruto said, "I will tell you the truth so you know the fox was sick and it was not me. Let's see, Hinata, Tamari, both of you, Brianna, Hana, Kurenai, Anko, Tenten, Princess Yukie Fujika's." Kakashi, who had been quit, said, "Wait, Naruto, she's dead." Naruto said, "No, she's not, she's the actress Princess Fune, anyway, who else?" "Oh yeah, Yame, Tsunami, Haku and a few others I don't remember very well." Ino said, "Okay, I don't like it, but I know you are telling the truth. So, how close were the actual uses to the ones he sent?" Naruto said, "Well, I would say by the time he was done editing them you all had racks like Granny." Tsunade said warningly, "What's that supposed to mean?" Naruto said, "When I returned from the 3-year trip with the pervert over there, you suffocated me in a hug and had to use medical jutsu and kyubi to keep me alive. I could not break free because of that monster strength." Shizune said, "Well, I would love to hear more, but we are in the Hokage office and I would like to show Naruto his new home. You are both welcome to come." And so everyone left except the third, who cried at all the paperwork. Naruto ran back in and said, "Here's a tip so you can get out of this office and away from paperwork. Kujbunshin." And then left. The third thought for a moment and then smiled as he created 5 clones and got to work. "This is to let you know I will have a harem for Naruto. Sakura and Tamari Kurenai are out. I have plans for them, so vote in the reviews for who you want to be in it. I promise I will make relationships for them even though Ino is his main love. Possibles are Tenten, Haku, Princess Yukie, Ayame, Hinata don't want to but will. Anko some OC, Brianna Kakashi daughter, OC from another of my stories. Kin, Hana, or anyone I specifically did not say no to. Or possible OC but not from Konoha. Must tell which village you want them from and if she is a ninja or not." When everyone arrived at his where Naruto family lived, he was in awe. He had seen the outside before when Tsunade and Shinzune lived here but never passed the front gate because ABNU always stopped him and got them. So now that he saw what was inside the walls where they lived, he was surprised. A beautiful garden with several variety of flowers which were in full bloom but looked like they could use some work trimming were everywhere. Next was a stone walkway around the 2-story house and a relaxation area on the left side with a gazebo, a personal hot spring with a dividing wall for privacy around it and down the middle. The right side of the house had a mason workshop and an indoor gym area with training dummies, a sparring ring and weight sets. The back of the house was a complete sparring area. There were tall trees, a pond that fed and was fed by the same pond and that underground feed. A small desert and a level open ground area with training post. The group was led into the house and showed a formal dining area that you see 200 and needed. A huge kitchen, an impressive library with several uncommon jutsu and jutsu for the bloodline of wood and water users. Naruto smiled when he saw this and remembered something what happened the Christmas right before they came back. Flashback. Naruto and Ino had been seeing each other for about 3 months and it was Christmas time. Konoha had already been destroyed and they were in Suna preparing for a hit-and-run battle to try and stop any member of Akatsuki to survive. So far they had stopped 3 members by sending a group specialized to take out 1 member. Naruto had been searching for Ino something for Christmas. Ino was currently at the little apartment him and her shared watching over Sakura baby girl Blossom. A name her mother and father both thought would be something to remind her of both of them. Naruto came across an abandoned building near the edge of Suna and saw what looked like a dying little potted plant in the window. The house had been abandoned about 2 weeks now after Gaara ordered most civilians to Snow Country under Princess Yukie protection. Since it was so hard to get to and being isolated like it was, it still had not been attacked. Naruto went inside the building and checked the plant and saw it was still alive. He smiled and took out his canteen of water and gave the plant a little and thought, I don't know anything about plants, but maybe my healing ability will help you to look better. I guess you are the best I can get, Ino. I hope she like you. And he started channeling a little chakra into it. The plant went from having brown dying leaves to the leaves started getting green Aegean and a single red rose appeared on it. Naruto smiled and thought, maybe I got Granny Tsunade granddad ability. Too bad no one know how to use it now if I did. Who knows? And so he took the rose plant to Ino for Christmas. Flashback end. Ino saw Naruto smiled and said, what got you smiling looking in the library of all places? Naruto just said, I was remembering our last Christmas before coming back. Ino smiled and said, you never did tell me where you found such a healthy looking rose plant in the middle of Suna during winter, no less when almost all civilians had been evacuated to snow. Naruto said, you can say I grew it just for you. Ino said, that's not fair. You still won't tell me. And she pouted with her arms across her chest. They continue exploring the house and found several bedrooms with a personal bath for every room. They finally found Naruto room and found all new beds and dresser with no just what clothes he had. Shizune said, tomorrow we will go get you some new clothes. I will leave you two alone and let you explore. And she left. Sakura left shortly after they got here when she got a signed copy of Volume 15 from the author of Ika Ika Paradise along with Kakashi getting one also. Tsunade and Jiraiya had stopped in the dining room and started to share some sake. Ino said, I got to go home for a little bit, but I am coming back to see you after you had a chance to think about everything and take a shower since you are still dirty from the trip back. Naruto walked over and kissed her and said, thank you for finally giving me my family. Ino smiled and said, I would do anything to make you happy. I will see you in a little while. And she left. Naruto sighed and went to the bathroom to take a long shower and think. When Naruto got out of the shower, he dried off and got out a pair of frog boxers and a black sleeveless t-shirt and laid down on his bed and fell asleep. Lemon. Naruto was asleep when Ino came back into the room and she smiled at his sleeping form. She locked the door and did a few hand seals and went to the bathroom and changed clothes. She came back in a black teddy with matching panties. She went over to the bed and slowly crept into it, not making Naruto yet. She softly pressed her lips to his and used just enough force to wake him. Naruto's eyes fluttered open and saw Ino's eyes and hair and closed his eyes again and started to return the kiss with full passion. Ino slid her leg over his and intertwined them and pulled him on top of her as the switch positions. Naruto broke the kiss at this and for the first time saw what she was wearing. He slowly let his eyes drift over her body and then back up to meet her eyes. Ino said, if I have to share you someday, I want to get as much time now as possible. I want to be with you now. We may accidentally die any day now. Our knowledge is not always going to prepare us. I want to be yours now and forever. And she leaned forward and started kissing him Aegean. Naruto finally broke the kiss and slowly started kissing down her body, stopping at her neck and giving her a love bite. Ino gasped at the feeling her body was sending her. Naruto slid the shoulder straps off of her teddy as he was doing this and pulled it down enough to expose her breast. Ino sat up and grabbed his shirt and yanked it off of him and did the same to her teddy as they lay forgotten on the floor. She then shoved him down on the bed and started to kiss him as she ran her hands along his well-toned chest and stomach, and when they reached the top of his boxers she slid them down, and as she broke th kiss and started kissing her way down his chest until she got to what she wanted. There stood his 10 inches all waiting for her. She grabbed his boxers and yanked them off his body, tearing them to shreds, and slowly started to caress his manhood in her hands. She then took the tip of it in her mouth and slowly started putting more in. It took several moments, but she finally, after learning to relax her muscles, got most of it in her mouth and started bouncing up and down with her head. This kept going for a few minutes and Naruto was in heaven. He felt a pressure building and said between gasps, no. Go. Ing, too, and then he unloaded into her mouth. At first Ino choked, not knowing what to expect, and forcefully had to swallow it, but gulped it all down since Naruto had grabbed her head and held it there as he finished. After he was done, Ino sat up and smiled at him, and he grabbed her, threw her down and kissed her passionately and took charge of the situation. He tore her panties away without trying to take them off and slowly slid a finger into her while he used his thumb to find her clit. He then began to rub her clit as he fingered her faster. He took his other hand and started playing with her right breast. He then broke the kiss and started sucking on her nipples while continue playing with her. Ino soon became full-blown ecstasy and pushed Naruto head toward he. He moved down and started to lap her juices and ran his tongue over her clit. After a few moments of this, his erection returned and Ino soon released as she screamed, Naruto went back up and kissed her and said after she calmed down, "Are you sure you want this now?" Ino looked right into his eyes as he heard her purring and said, "If you don't, I will tie you to this bed myself and fuck you anyways." Naruto sat back up and positioned himself at her entrance, looked her in the eyes, and she said, "NNNNNNOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO and felt her barrier and drew back, and when he did, Ino grabbed him and flipped him and sat down on him in one swift motion, breaking her barrier and claiming him all the way in one motion. She sat there for a moment in pain and finally relaxed and saw the worry in his eyes and said, "You were taking too long and I got impatient." She then slowly started to bounce up and down on him after she got used to his size and started building up speed. She got bouncing so fast it sounded like a woodpecker as he also pumped into her. Her and Naruto both climaxed at the same time and released together, screaming out the other's name. Lemon end. Ino sat beside Naruto panting and looked into his eyes and was engulfed in a passionate kiss, and then laid beside each other and telling the other "I love you" before passing out. About an hour later, a knock was heard on the door and woke both up. Ino quickly but sorely went to the bathroom and Naruto grabbed a pair of shorts out of a drawer and unlocked the door before opening it. Sakura was there and said, "I came by looking for Ino and was told she's here," and walked into the bedroom and looked around. Naruto said, "She's in the bathroom right now." Sakura nodded and sat down on a chair beside a desk in the room. Naruto quickly started to pick up the clothes on the floor when Sakura was not looking, and when he picked up the teddy he saw Sakura shooting him a look that said, "Am I interrupting something?" Naruto threw everything into his hamper and sat down on the edge of the bed. A few moments later, Ino came out walking awkward and said, "Sakura, what are you doing here?" as she sat on the bed. Sakura said, "I came to see you and ask if you would tell me no about my future self and a few other thing, but I think I came at a bad time if the cloths Naruto picked up was yours." Naruto got up and went to the bathroom. When he was gone, Ino sighed and said, "Yeah, they were mine. I wanted him and that's what I got." Sakura sat beside Ino blushing and said, "So, how was he in it?" Ino said, "High stamina is a plus and it was great." Sakura leaned over while still blushing and said, "So how big?" Ino blushed and said, "I say about a 10 to 12, big and strong." It hurt at first because it was mine and his first, but it was all worth it. Sakura smiled and said, I am envious. So who am I going to be married to and what else am I like in the future? Ino sighed and said, I will tell you because it may not happen since things can and hopefully do change. You marry a man named Rock Lee. Right now his looks are scary because he idolizes his sensei to the point of obsession. Because of you he slowly changes over time and finally get a different haircut and his eyebrows trimmed to look normal. I won't tell you anything else but this. Give up on Sasuke and look for new people. Maybe you and Lee will hook up Aegean, maybe not, but I don't want to see my best friend die Aegean because of some stupid ass. It nearly killed the both of us. Sakura nodded and said, I won't make the same mistake this time. Can I ask you something that has bothered me ever since graduation day and now that I hear you mention that? Ino nodded and Sakura said, what was Naruto really like before you and him toward me? Ino laughed a little and said, to answer that you should realize Naruto had a terrible life before because of the Kyuubi and only had a real family for a moment before it was gone. He had a crush on you until the age of 15 or 16 because he did love you but learned later that it was the love of a sister. He never knew what different types of love was like until then. He saved you life several times from certain death and almost rape once when a mission went bad. The bastard that ran that slavering got to meet Kyuubi's power firsthand. Naruto let his emotions out when 4 of the bastard had you held down with chains and he used 4 tail of power and slaughtered him and his men. When the backup team arrived most of us lost our lunch at the scene. Naruto does not talk about it but what really changed him was when Temari was killed. She had been a sisterly kind of love to him and after her death since Gaara was the brother he never had. He realized that was the same for you. Sakura looked down and said, is our future really that bad? Ino said, only if we fail to change it. Sakura smiled and said, so how did you and Naruto really start? He told me he saved you from a snake outside the walls of our village. Ino laughed and said, actually that's a pretty good tale of how it happened. Sasuke attacked the village with an army and Naruto by this time was our major powerhouse and it was before we started seedling. Sasuke used his hidden snake hands to send a viper at me to distract Naruto so he could kill him. Naruto took the bite for me and you broke 6 of Sasuke ribs in one punch when he was distracted. I had already started to like him before that but caused me to fall for him. It was not for several years though before we got together as a couple but it never got past kissing. Naruto blamed himself for all our friends dying and would not let anyone get too close. Sakura smiled and said, so he really is your knight in shining armor. Whatever happened to Hinata and her mega crush? Naruto who had came out during the tale of them falling for each other said, I was never an idiot when it came to her crush for me. I just valued my life to act on it back when we were younger. I had words with Hiyoshi back then after Hinata started using me as a crutch for her emotional strength. He may seem like a bastard but he really does care for Hinata. It's his counsel you have to watch out for. Hinata was a close friend and will always be but I don't see any romantic stuff between us because to me she is my little sister which is very hard when she practically throws herself at you but she is my little sis. Just like you are my older sister Sakura. Before I went on my 3-year training trip I finally sat down with her and discussed it and after having her explain it and Granny Tsunade pumping her full of caffeine and adrenaline to keep her from passing out. I then got her to realize the feeling she had for me was respect and idolism not love. We never told anyone about it and she started looking at her teammates and started to date Shino. She died the day they were going to secretly get married so the council would not find out. Shino was cruel to the Kabuto for that. He sucked him dry of chakra, while having his bugs eat him from the inside out. Sakura said, we have got some sadistic friends. I am glad I am not their enemy. Ino smiled and said, so anything else you want to know? Sakura said, what are you planning on doing with Sasuke? Naruto said, if he follows the same path and flees the village kill him. He will be the cause of over half our friends dying. His brother and his organization the other half. Sakura nods and said, well, I guess I will go now. Ino said, I will go with you. I don't think I can walk straight and we live close to each other. See you tomorrow, Naruto. And she kisses him before leaving. Naruto lays down on his bed and said, what a day, before going back to sleep. The next day Naruto got up and after getting ready came downstairs and found his new family at the table eating, saw a plate for him waiting. Naruto sat down and said, so how is everyone today? Everyone looked at him and smiled and Shizune said, Naruto, can I ask you something? Naruto waited till he swallowed his food and shook his head yes while looking at her. Shizune said, what do you really think about us? Truthfully. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment and then said as he looked at them, truthfully, I love you all. I know it's weird me knowing you all different but you not knowing me. I admit when I first found out who you all were I was hurt because I had been alone all my life family-wise beside the third who was like a grandpa to me when he could before he died. But you all had become precious to me in my other life. Mom, you were like a sister to me that would help doctor me when I was hurt emotionally or physically more than I could take. Grandpa, you were the uncle nobody liked to talk about but you taught me a lot and helped me grow strong and proud. Grandma, you were like the aunt who would spoil me when she could and nobody was looking. Everyone in the village found out the hard way. Never call me demon when you were around because you had to build a whole wing to the hospital just for victim of your wrath and I made you put a few gray hairs in your genjutsu from the hell I caused you. We may have not known then we were related until it was too late but you were and are my family that I love. Shizune got up and hugged Naruto before crying. After a while she finally stopped and they finished their dinner. Shizune said after they finish cleaning up, let's go get you some new clothes with your clan symbol. They all left together and headed into town. They stopped by the Yamanko flower shop and picked up Ino. As they were leaving Tsunade said, Ino, why are you walking with a limp today? Ino looked at Naruto and said, I pushed myself too hard yesterday and I am sore today. Tsunade said, ah, I understand. That's common anyways. She then did a few seals and her hand started to glow green and touched Ino's stomach and legs before saying, that should help. I suggest going easier from now on. More enjoyable and less aches. Jiraiya laughed and Shizune shot Ino a look that said what are you doing with my son and we need to talk. They finally made it to the Wolfclaw weapon shop and walked in. The man behind the counter said, hi, my name is Dustin and welcome to my family shop. How can I help you? Tsunade said, we are here to get Naruto here some new cloths and supplies. Dustin smiled and said, sure just help yourself and if you need anything ask. Shizune said, go ahead and get whatever you want. They started looking around the shop and Naruto stopped and said, can you make custom weapons? Everyone looked at him and Dustin said, yes I can. I just need you to write down what you need and I can make anything. Naruto nodded and picked up a blank scroll and a paintbrush and started writing. Everyone else left him alone and looked around the shop. 5 minutes later he stooped and rolled up the scroll and said, I need the weapon on this scroll made in the quantity order with the seals engraved into it and please do not tell anyone the info on it besides whoever has to help with them. The man nodded and opened the scroll and dropped it and said, are you messing with me kid? Naruto said, no, I am serious. I take it from the look you know what those are for so I will just say please be careful with that info if you can make them. Dustin said, I can make them, that's not the problem because I done them before. I just never expected someone to know them. Can I catch you name? Naruto said, my name is Naruto. Shizune said, Kazama, Naruto Kazama. Dustin said now I know why you know Hiraishin. Everyone but Ino stopped and looked at Naruto when they heard that and Naruto said, I don't. I never could do it right because the Kunia I had most of the seals damaged and I had to start from almost scratch to create a version of it. If I had the original seals I might have been as good as dad. Mine only let me go about 100 feet between Kuniya to work. Dustin nodded and said, I can make these seals on the scroll for you, but I still have the master mold with the original seals still intact in a secret vault. I could make you some to try and master the Hiraishin then. Naruto said, can you make 200 of the ones I wrote and put the appropriate seals into both sealing scroll and make me 10 of the other ones? Ino said, what exactly is the Hiraishin you are talking about? Jiraiya said, it's the jutsu that earned the Yodime the nickname Yellow Flash. Ino said, oh, if Naruto drawed those strang Kuniya he used before, then his was a red flash, but it ate his chakra like a kid in a candy store. After doing it almost 200 times he was almost dead from exhaustion. Naruto went through the ninja clothing and found some black shinobi clothes similar to his shapeshift clothes he has on, but notices these were better with built-in holsters for Kuniya, shurikens, scrolls, and still have room for more. Naruto decided to try them on, and he also found a jacket with a strap for his sword. He got a few soldier pills packs and first aid packs with blood replenishing and clotting pills and some medical wrapping. He went to the changing room to change. When he came out in a pair of black ninja pants and a tight black fishnet shirt and a black ninja vest halfway zipped over it with the jacket on also unzipped with his sword on his back, he noticed that Ino was standing there waiting to see him and Tenten was beside he. He smiled and said, so how do I look? Ino said, good enough to eat. This is Tenten, her family owns this place. Tenten, I would like you to meet Naruto, my fiancé. Tenten had a small amount of drool hanging, and after Ino snapped her fingers said, I think you were in my class 2 years back. Naruto said, yeah I was, I goofed around too much back then. Ino saw the look on Tenten's face and knew it well and said, I think that should be all for today Naruto. Let's get you a few more copies of those and have them altered. Naruto nodded and went back inside to change back, and Ino said, like what you see Tenten. Tenten blushed and said, I don't know what you are talking about Ino. Ino said, relax, I know he's a great guy. That's why I am going to marry him when we get old enough. Tenten said, you're lucky. Ino smiled and said, thanks. Truthfully, do you like him? Tenten said, he's cute and from what I remember he was a decent guy, but I don't know much about him. Why? Ino said, I know this sounds odd, but you see, we already found out I can't have kids for a reason, and Naruto was told that since he comes from such a special family he has to marry more than one girl and have children. Naruto does not want to do it because he is faithful to me, but the council will force him to, so I decided that I would have to find someone who is nice and decent enough for him that would treat him right, and since I knew you for a few years now and saw you drooling earlier, I would give you a shot to get to know him and maybe one day marry him. He can't go against the council, and if he does not follow the rules and produce an heir, the council will pick some slut off the street and force him to marry her. Tenten was stunned and said, so let me get this straight. Because of his family background he has to have a child, and since you can't have one you are pimping him out. Ino laughed and said, in a manner of speaking, yes. So what do you say? Tenten thought for a moment and said, I will agree to date him once and go from there. If I don't like him I will back out. If I do then fine. They watch as Naruto put his cloths on the counter and Shizune and Tsunade explained what they wanted on his cloths and paid. Both girls walked up to them and Ino said, tonight at 6 okay. Tenten nodded as they all left. Dustin said, what was that all about? Tenten said, I got a date tonight at 6 with Naruto. Dustin said, I thought the way that Ino was all over him she was with him. Tenten said, she is, but since they are getting married she is trying to solve a problem before it starts. Dustin said, what? Tenten said, she can't have kids and because of who his family is he has to have children, so she decided she would find him the right woman before the Kusal pick up some random girl off the street. Dustin said, and you're okay with that? Tenten said, I don't know. That's why I agreed to the date. Naruto said as he was walking with his family and Ino to get some ramen, so what was that all about? Ino said, You have a date with Tenten tonight at 6. Everyone looked at her like she was crazy and Naruto said, "What?" Ino sighed and said, "I know you, Naruto. You would defy the council and get in trouble and still have to marry someone of their choosing, so I decided I would find someone who is a good person who we both could get along with and set you up on a date so you can get to know them and then you and everyone wins." Tsunade said to Shizune, "Looks like you future daughter-in-law is the take charge kind of woman." Shizune sighed and grabbed the notebook from Jiraiya and said, "You are not putting my son in that damn book." Sarah walked up to Ino and said, "Honey, I need you to look after the shop for me." Ino said, "Why can't Dad?" Sarah said, "Your dad is in the hospital Aegean and I got to go buy another broom." Ino burst out laughing and said, "You used that Aegean, what did he do this time?" Sarah said, "He said I was not as thin as I was when I was younger, so I used that 1,000,000 years of broomstick jutsu you taught me." Everyone burst out laughing and Tsunade said, "How did you learn that, Ino? I know they taught it after I created the first version for the pervert over here, but I say that's a new one." Ino said, "From before Naruto taught me by trying it on me. I learned the 1,000 years of pain was used on him by Kakashi during the bell test. I beat the hell out of him for that and made him learn about female anatomy from you and those books." Sarah said as she walked with them, "I see you are not limping anymore. What happened anyways?" Jiraiya, being the pervert he is, said, "From my guess, her and Naruto acted like rabbits." Naruto said, "I taught Ino that version but I created my own version. It involves a kunia, and exploding tag and 5 seconds. Our personal life is not your concern." Jiraiya paled and waved it off and said, "Everyone's personal life is my concern. I have my fans to think about." Naruto suddenly disappeared and reappeared behind Jiraiya and shoved a kunia up his butt with a flash tag instead of an exploding tag. Jiraiya sailed through the air and dissolved into rock as the tag exploded. The real Jiraiya landed beside Naruto and said, "I give you a 8.5 on execution, but the landant I only give you a 6.9. Naruto sighed and said, "I thought I would at least get a 9.0 on execution. Oh well, there's always next time." Everyone laughed and Ino said bye and Sarah went to the hospital Aegean. They finally got some ramen and then went home to relax. Naruto started to plan for tonight and decided just for a picnic in the park. Warning: do not drink anything during this chapter or you will have to wash your computer screen. You have been warned. The real Sasuke comes out. 2 weeks have passed since Team 7 got back from Wave and Naruto had his date with Tenten. He had already signed the Toad contract as well as Slug to make Tsunade happy. He spent a lot of time getting to know his family better and hear about his dad and other relatives. Tsunade discovered never to bet against Naruto because he will win. Flashback. Naruto had just picked up his weapons from the Wolfclaw weapon shop and went back to the Kazama estates. News had done spread across town about his engagement to Ino, but no one knew how they found out since both Ino and Sakura had kept quiet. Naruto started practicing with his kunia and after an hour he was able to transport from each kunia as long as they were 100 feet apart or closer. Naruto then tried with the 10 original Hiraishin no Jutsu kunia and could not perform anything. He tried for about 4 hours with no results when Tsunade walked out and said, "So how's it going, brat?" Naruto said, "Not good. My kunia I design work like I used to, so I am confident in them, but they still eat too much chakra. I am working with the originals now but nothing works." Tsunade said, "You dad was a genius and no one could figure it out. Just give up already." Naruto said, "No, I won't give up because I will figure it out, it's a promise and I never go back on my word." Tsunade smiled and said, "You are just wasting your time, kid. You just don't have what it takes to do it." Naruto got mad and said, "You want to bet?" Tsunade, not one to back down from a bet, said, "Sure, what's the odds?" Naruto said, "If I can perform the Hiraishin no Jutsu in 48 hours, you have to give me that necklace." Tsunade thought for a moment and said, "Fine, but if I win you have to quit calling me old. Naruto said, deal you old bag. Tsunade eye twitched as she left to go get some sake. 24 hours later Naruto had worked throughout the night and was exhausted and not figured out how to do it yet when he fell on the ground asleep. Shizune came out and picked him off the ground and took him inside the house. Naruto woke 12 hours later and ate real quick before going back out to work on it. Tsunade came out and said, give it up. You can't do it. Naruto said, what's the matter you old bag? You scared I will do it? Tsunade sighed and said, I swear you are just like your dad was. Stubborn and proud. Naruto smiled and said, damn straight. He then stopped for a moment and looked at the kunai in his hand. After a moment he started laughing. Tsunade said, what's so funny? Naruto said, I am an idiot. I have been doing it wrong this whole time. I have been channeling my chakra into the kunai before throwing it and then force my chakra into my body to trigger it to work. Tsunade said, what does that have to do with anything? Naruto said, simple. The secret is a seal I just noticed. It's a storage seal, a simple storage seal. All you have to do is send enough chakra into the kunai to reach the storage seal. Once it's full, that's it. Once the kunai hits something and the storage seal is triggered, he then threw the kunai and when it hit the tree, a yellow and red flash appeared and Naruto was standing by the kunai. Tsunade said, how did you do that? Naruto said, it's a summon seal. Whoever's chakra is in the storage seal will be summoned when it is triggered. The user does not have to channel chakra into his or her body. It's all preset. Tsunade said, but that would mean that after the first time someone could just use chakra and use it. Naruto said, no, there is a signature seal hid in all the other. Mine have it also so I recognize it. It is key to whoever channels chakra into it first. Anyone else's chakra will just pass by the storage seal. And you know what the best part is? I don't have to worry about chakra exhaustion again because it's already in the kunai. Well, I guess I won the bet. Tsunade smiled and hugged Naruto after giving him her necklace. Flashback end. He has also had several more dates with Tenten but laughs when he remember what happened. Flashback. Naruto and Tenten were in the park sharing a picnic lunch Naruto had made and were just talking when Sakura showed up and first thing she thought was he was cheating. She charged right up and said, how can you be cheating on Ino after everything you've been through? It was just yesterday you both had. Are you just using her and then dropping her? Naruto stood up and tried to say something when Sakura punched him in the face and stormed off to see Ino but not before turning to Tenten and said, slut, as she left. Naruto sighed and said, that girl has got to control her other personality. Tenten said, so she suffers from MPD multiple personality disorder. Naruto nodded and said, yeah, one does all the talking and the other does all the action. That's how you can tell which is in charge. Tenten laughed and said, so, at least she's not as bad as my teammate Lee. Naruto laughed and hanged into Lee and said, Sakura my sweet, I will protect you with my life. Will you go out with me and spread the power of youth? And drop the henge. Tenten was rolling on the ground laughing. She finally calmed down and said, how do you know how Lee looks and sounds? Naruto said, who doesn't, but he is okay if you can get him away from Guy. Neji though needs that stick removed from his ass. Fate this and fate that. I swear if he farts he would say fate decided it would happen. Tenten laughed again and said, you act like you know them your whole life as well as me but you may just barely know each other. How is that? Naruto sighed and said, I learned how to read people a long time ago and I know a lot more about people than they think I do. When everyone ignores you they tell a lot without realizing you're there and hear it. Tenten smiled and saw a shooting star and said, make a wish. Naruto said, I only have one wish. To protect all my friends and family and they all live a long happy life. Flashback end. It was a good date and they have had 2 more dates with Ino. Sakura told Tenten and Naruto she was sorry after she found out the truth. Currently Team 7 was on their way through snow country protecting Fujika's Yukie. The Hokage remember as well as Kakashi when Naruto mentioned she was the actual princess of snow country. They had already met the Nadir in battle and things went just like before. Naruto was standing on the tracks as the train that chased them through the tunnel stopped. Naruto knows what was fixing to happen and the people who will die quickly summoned Silga and said, I want you to destroy the train before they attack. Silga blasts a stream of water out of her mouth that freezes when it hits the train, stopping the doors from opening. She then goes and swipes the trail with one of her gaunt paws, knocking it off the track and down the hill. Naruto then releases her and watches as men exit the train and run. He then hears a scream behind him and sees Yukie already in the airship and can't reach her this time. Naruto quickly starts running on the ground following the airship. Kakashi screamed for him to stop, but it fell on deaf ears. Kakashi said, well, we don't have a choice. We will have to track Naruto later. For now, let's get you all to safety. We will then go after Naruto and save the princess. They won't kill her while I have this. As he holds out the hexagon crystal. Naruto was running through the woods by treetop following the airship as it took Yukie away. He travels for several hours and the airship slowly get further away every minute. Every moment feel that fate of his one-time friend is slipping away. After running to the point of exhaustion, he finally sees the airship land at a castle. Naruto decided to rest a little while as he collapses from exhaustion of staying warm, summoning and chasing after the airship for several in snow-covered trees. Naruto awoke to a little pug dog named Puckin sitting on his chest. Puckin said, he is finally awake, Kakashi, before he disappears as a puff of smoke. Kakashi sighs and said, you're lucky we found you or you might have died, Naruto. Sakura walked over and hit him and said, I don't want to have to tell Ino that you died for being stupid. Sasuke just HMPED in his usual attitude. Naruto said, sorry for worrying you. I tracked them to that castle west of here. The airship landed before I passed out. Kakashi nodded and said, okay, here's the plan. Naruto, you and Sakura are to come in from the east side of the castle Kately and try to find and rescue the princess. Sasuke and I will cause a distraction at the front gate. With that, the two teams split. Naruto and Sakura made it to the east side of the castle and looked for any way to get in. Naruto looked up and saw a window about 400 feet up and the entire wall was covered in ice. Naruto looked at Sakura and said, I can get us in, but you won't like how and you will have to trust me. Sakura said, I trust you. So how do we get it? Naruto shape-shifted into his true form and his nails grew and his tail appeared. Naruto the grabbed Sakura with 5 of his tails and jab a clawed hand into the ice. He repeated this Aegean and Aegean slowly making it up the wall. Sakura not liking being carried like this with one tail per arm and leg and another around her waist started to squirm. Naruto stops his climb and whispers, please stop moving or I might drop you. Sakura stopped and they continued up the wall. Once they made it to the window they climbed in and Naruto changed back to look normal. Sakura used her radio and said, we're inside, starting to look now, and they started to search. Sasuke and Kakashi were chasing 2 women across the bridge. Kakashi grabbed one woman and pinned her to the castle wall and started to grab at her cloths while Sasuke did the same to the other. Both women screamed for help. A pair of snow ninja appeared and grabbed Sasuke and Kakashi away from the girls and punched both while the women continued to scream. When the punches hit both, Sasuke and Kakashi disappeared and the 2 snow ninja collapsed from being hit from behind as the 2 women change into the real Sasuke and Kakashi. Sasuke looked at Kakashi and said, I can't believe you made me do that. Kakashi said, at least now you could say you know what it's like to feel like a woman. You still can't say you've been with one though. That will be next time. And they both went inside the castle. Naruto never did like just looking, decided the frontal assault would be better and created 100 cage bunshin and had half henge into Sakura and start looking for Yukie. Kakashi and Sasuke were heading down some stairs when Naruto and Sakura came running by them and Naruto said, "Not down there." Kakashi stopped and then they came back by and said, "Not up there." A few minutes later another set came out of a hallway and said, "Not down the hall." Suddenly 10 pairs of Naruto and Sakura appeared at the same time and said, "Any luck?" and looked at Kakashi and Sasuke and said together, "Don't just stand there, help us find her." Together at the same time. Sasuke grabs his hair in his hands and starts pulling out chunks of hair before grabbing a kunai and starts destroying all the pairs screaming, "Who's your daddy? Who's the bitch now? Die little whore. Can you feel it, huh? Huh." Kakashi's sweat drops and slowly backs away. Naruto stopped in his tracks and Sakura said, "What's wrong?" Naruto said, "Sasuke is fucked up. He is killing all my clones and saying some crazy stuff." Sakura said, "You already told me Sasuke screwed up, what's new?" Sasuke came running around the corner without his pants screaming, "You want some of this?" A huge door opens into the hallway and Dato looks out to see what's going on and Sasuke screamed, "Oh, here another bitch for big Sasuke pimp mobile," and then charges at Dato. Dato runs and hides behind Yukie. Sasuke said, "She not my type," and grabs Yukie and throws her into the air. Kakashi appears and catches her but drops the hexagon crystal. Dato sees it and runs and bends over to grab it. Sasuke appeared behind him and said, "I knew you would like this." Dato rolled to the side to get away and kicked Sasuke in the nuts. Sasuke fell to the floor and said, "If you wanted to go first you just had to ask," before he fell to the floor asleep. Dato got up and ran out of the room for his life. Naruto, who saw this, ran after him only to hear Sasuke say something that stopped him in his tracks, "Get away from him, Ino, he's my man, not yours." Naruto ran over to Sasuke and drawed back and field goal kicked him as hard as he could and Sasuke flew across the room and hit a wall. Kakashi saw this and said, "I would have went for the 2-point conversion." Naruto turned and ran after Dato. Sakura walked over to Kakashi and said, "What the hell happened?" Kakashi said, "I think we broke him somehow and we don't have a warranty." Sakura said, "Do you think we can fix him?" Kakashi said, "I don't have any duct tape." Naruto was chasing Dato down the hall and was catching up but not fast enough. He quickly summoned 2 medium-sized two-tail foxes that were running with him. Naruto said, "The man ahead of me I am chasing, I need you to catch and stop him for me." The 2 foxes charged after Dato and each bit into his legs' hamstrings to stop him. Naruto appeared above him with a Rasengan and drove it into his back since he was face down. Dato died from the attic. Naruto grabbed the crystal and walked back to the others. Sasuke stirred a moment later with a smile on his face and said, "I had a great dream." He tried to stand up and felt hurt and sore. He then looked around and said, "I guess it was not a dream." He then looked off into space dreamily. He then said, "I wonder if it was as good for Naruto as it was for me." Naruto, who had walked into the room a few seconds before, heard that and quickly grabbed the closest female, who happened to be Yukie, and started rocking back and forward. Yukie, who was also terrified of Sasuke, now just comforted Naruto. 1 week later, back in Konoha at the Kazama estate in Naruto bedroom. Ino walked in and saw Naruto rocking back and forward and some beautiful woman holding him. Ino said, "Can I ask why you are holding Naruto like that?" Yukie said, "He suffered extreme emotional shock on his mission. His job was to protect me from my uncle, which he did. His teammate Sasuke went nuts and caused this. He won't let me get farther than 5 feet away before going into shock." Ino sighed and said, "I think I can help him, but you will have to hold him." Yukie said, "I don't mind. He's a nice and cute guy. Are you his sister?" Ino laughed and said, "I will tell you after I get out of his mind." Ino entered Naruto's mind and he collapsed, and a few minutes later she came out and said, "You weren't kidding. I sealed his memories of it so he should not remember. That was some crazy stuff and he would not let you even go to the bathroom alone." At least he respected your privacy. So tell me, what do you think of Naruto? Team 7 had been put on temporary medical leave with 2 members having mental breakdowns. The week flew by and a lot of things happened. The Hokage finally agreed to let Tsunade start her 4-man team with a medic, so she has currently started teaching all female ninja under the age of 25 medical skills. Shizune had been spending most of her time helping Naruto with the last of the dependency he grew while in Snow Country. Mostly it was getting to know the real Naruto, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams, and they made an agreement not to look at his and Ino other life experiences since they were young Aegean, but create new ones here. It took a few days, but after they spent time together, Shizune, Jiraiya, and Tsunade noticed that Naruto still kept a emotions mask on. They finally got him to break it with help from his future wives. Naruto was currently in his family library reading when Shizune came in to see him. She sat down beside him and said, "So, what are you reading?" Naruto said, "I was reading one of the first scrolls on the Jutsu growth and Mokuden Haijutsu, Jukai Koden would release secret technique, birth of dense woodland. I wanted to try and see if I might be able to do it because of something that happened once." Shizune said, "You know I am proud of you." Naruto stopped reading and looked at her and said, "Thanks, Mom. That means a lot to me." Shizune said, "So you want to go outside and try those jutsu?" Naruto nodded and rolled up the scroll and headed outside. Once they made it to the backyard, he performed the hand seals for growth and tried it, but nothing happened. He tried Aegean and the same. Shizune walked over and said, "Why don't you try what happened before and see if it worked?" Naruto knelt down and put his hand on a small tree and channeled chakra into it and said growth. The tree started growing bigger and taller. It kept growing until Naruto stopped. Shizune ran over to him and said, "We got to show Tsunade." She then ran inside, and a few moments later Shizune and Tsunade both came out. When they got out, Tsunade said, "What's so important?" Naruto walked to another small tree and repeated what he did, and the tree grew Aegean. Tsunade fell on her but and looked at Naruto and said, "Looks like you have some of grandfather's bloodline." Naruto smiled and said, "I only can do it like this, and it's different than what was on the scroll." Tsunade said, "Perhaps you will have to do it different, or perhaps someone forgot to include something in the scroll. Anyways, good job, brat." Tsunade and Jiraiya wedding was a small affair. Flashback. The third was standing in the backyard of the Kazama household. The wedding was not a big affair. The only people present besides the bride and groom was Shizune, Naruto, Ino, Tenten, Inoichi, Sarah, Dustin, Yukie, Sakura, and Kakashi. The third said, "Dearly beloved, we are." Tsunade said, "This damn dress is hot, so just cut to the chase." The third sighed and said, "Do you, Tsunade, take?" Tsunade said, "Yes." Jiraiya said, "Don't ask, you already know I said yes." The third said, "Then I pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Kazama. You may kiss the bride." Jiraiya and Tsunade kissed, and he grabbed her ass and she sent him sailing through the air. Kakashi said, "So why did he take?" They both take the Kazama name. Naruto said, "She told me it's because the first and second erase all traces of our family real last name for protection, and since they both came up with the name Kazama for dad when they hid him in the orphanage to protect him from their enemies, they decided to both take it in memory of him." Kakashi smiled and said, "Makes sense, so which of you are catching the flowers?" The girls got into a pretty big fight between Sakura, Ino, Yukie, and Tenten. Somehow weapons and ninjutsu got involved and the flowers got destroyed in the fight. Flashback end. Yukie had decided to stay in Konoha because Snow Country just brought up too many memories for now. She is still the princess, but she let her personal guard and best friend who made her return run the country for now since he knows the condition there better than her. She did start the spring for her home country, and they rejoiced and accepted her request to be an official diplomat to her country and Konoha. Ino and Tenten both got closer and helped Yukie adjust to Konoha life better. Ino had requested from her family to let her move in with Naruto and they agreed for different reasons. Her mom agreed because her little girl was all grown up and wanted to live in the world on her own. Her dad agreed so the chance of Ino teaching her mom another jutsu like the broom handle were slim. Tenten dad was not going to allow it but after a little persuasion he agreed. Flashback. Dustin stood with his arms crossed and said, I am not going to allow it until you are married. Tsunade and Jiraiya who came by to make a surprise order for Naruto saw this and Tsunade said, what if I can assure you that Tenten will be marrying Naruto? Dustin said, how can you ensure that? Jiraiya said, that was what we came to see you about today. As the current head of the Kazama family we wanted to go ahead and have you make some custom wedding rings for us with the Hiraishin engraved into it. We need 4 rings made and on the top of the rings we need the Kazama clan symbol engraved. Dustin said, I still don't follow and why 4 inches? Tsunade said, the surprise is after the Chunin exam Naruto, Ino, Tenten if she wants to, and Yukie if she wants to will be getting married. The council has already started to push since someone spotted Naruto using his bloodline they want heirs as fast as possible so they are forcing it. As for the last ring, they already heard about Ino not able to have kids and said he would have to find at least one more or they will. He has 2 years to find one. Dustin said, what bloodline does he have? Tsunade said, the first's wood manipulation ability. Dustin sighed and said, well, you said you wanted to date him and I will support you either way, so what do you want? Tenten said, I want to marry him dad. He's a great guy from everything I can tell. Dustin said, very well, I support you daughter and I know your mom would also if she was alive. I guess that means I need to hire a new helper since you won't be coming by. Tenten said, why's that? Just because I am getting married and someday have kids don't mean I can't still help you. Jiraiya said, also I wanted to inform you as we are going to inform the Yamanko flower shop if either of you need any help, physically or economically we will help you out since we are all family so our legacy will have proud and strong families. Dustin smiled and said, so what you waiting for Tenten? I am not getting any younger. Everyone laughed. Flashback end. Ino took the room beside Naruto's on the left, Tenten on the right and Yukie since she was new and did not have a place to stay took the room across the hall from Naruto. The entire family lived as the west wing of the house. The east side Shizune and Tsunade turned into classrooms for medical training. Because of Team 7 being down Team 9, Guy's team took the mission to T Country. Ino told Tenten she would take care of Naruto for her while she was gone. Sakura had her first run-in with them. Flashback. Tenten was in classroom at the Kazama house with Hinata, Sakura, and Ino, based on age and ranks. Suddenly a shout of, dynamic entry, was heard and the door to the room was busted of the hinges and Guy was standing there and said, oh my beautiful student Tenten. We have a most youthful mission for the Hokage. Meet at the south gate in an hour. Suddenly a carbon copy of Guy came in and said, Gia-sensei. I was able to inform Neji about our youthful mission. And they both hug and a sunset with ocean appeared in the background. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. They finally broke apart and shout of, dynamic exit, and Guy was gone. Tsunade came to see what was up and screamed, Guy, you're paying for that door. Lee started to leave but he saw Sakura and went over to her and said, what is your name? Sakura said, Sakura. Lee said, oh a beautiful name for a beautiful goddess. Sakura my sweet, I will protect you with my life. Will you go out with me and spread the power of youth? Tenten started rolling on the floor laughing and said, I can't believe it, word for word. Naruto said Lee would do that word for word. Sakura freaked and said, get a haircut and shave those eyebrows and get a new outfit that not spandex. Lee then shouted, yes, I will do this and if I still cannot get Sakura to go out with me I shall shave all my hair off and run 100 laps around Konoha, if I cannot do that then I will. Tenten said, Lee, The mission. Lee screamed, yes, can't be late for the power of youth. And then he left. Tenten right behind him. Sakura looked at Ino and said, is that the Lee you told me about? Ino nodded and Sakura said, where do they keep the sake in this place? Hinata giggled and finally composed herself as both girls looked at her. Ino decided to have a sisterly talk. She said, Hinata, are you mad that I am with Naruto as well as Yukie and Tenten? Hinata started putting her fingers together and said, why would I be? Ino said, you had a crush on him for years. Hinata said, who told you? Ino said, it's easy to pick up. I want you to actually think before answering this next question. Tell me, Hinata, do you love Naruto as a person or is it because he inspires you to be more than you are, with his self-confidence and never back down or go back on his word? Hinata though for a moment and said, since I don't actually talk to him much I don't really know him as a person. I do see him as everything else you said. Why? Ino said, Naruto explained this to me and Sakura and is planning on it also so I will save him from doing it. Hinata you look at him as a big brother. Not a boyfriend or lover. You do have those thoughts but you force yourself to do it and that's why you faint around him. You respect him for showing you how you should live since your family makes it hard. Naruto is actually smarter than people think. He told me about why he never said anything before now. Hinata was looking down and said, why? Is it because I am too weak? Naruto who was standing at the door said, no, it's because my little sister. I talked to your dad back when I first noticed the crush and he asked me to try and be a role model for you. Your family council had your dad over a barrel and still does. I hope to help with that but I don't have the power right now. The cage bird seal. Your dad is afraid the council will put it on you or your sister. By all rights Hanabi should have had it put on her at the age of 3 but since your father has made you think you are weaker than you or he has sat the council where they can't put it on either. I agreed to be your role model because I always felt you were like a little sister. That's why I ignored the crush you had on me and acted like an idiot over it. Do you understand? Hinata thought for a moment and said, so the love I have for you is a brotherly love. Naruto said, yeah, if it was not then you would not have to force your mind and body to fight each other which causes you to faint. When you find your one true love it won't matter what is wrong in the world. All that matters is you and that person. You can actually be you and not what people think you are. Hinata smiled and said, I understand. When did you get so wise, brother? Naruto said, damn it, just because I am an idiot when it comes to books does not mean I am not smart the rest of the time. And he stormed off with everyone else laughing. Flashback end. Sasuke was still in Ibiki office with Anko after a week. Ibiki had already been put on medical leave for emotional stress. Anko sighed and went to the Hokage. When Anko arrived the third said, so is there anything that can be done for him? Anko said, I can only think of one thing to do but you would have to find someone willing to do it. The third said, in this village I don't think that would be a problem. What is it? Anko said, basically the only thing I could think is for someone to fuck him. If his brain is stuck as being an emo then either he needs a woman's touch or you can kiss the Sharingan bye bye. The third said, I will see what I can do. Any particular type of woman you would suggest? Anko though for a moment and said, I would say someone into bondage because he is going to have to be chained down for it to work. The third thought and said, very well. I will consider it. Dismissed. The third looked at Kakashi and said, so what do you think, Kakashi? Kakashi thought for a moment and said, I think you should just have Inoichi go in and block the memories of everything that happened from entering the castle to now. The third said, I agree. That's better than any other options. Now let's see what Kakashi really was thinking. Sasuke was currently on a table and had both his arms tied to the side and his legs tied also. He had a gag over his mouth so he could not speak. He was in a solid white room with fluorescent lights. The door opened and a woman with 2 red tattoos on her face walked in with a backpack. The woman said, "My name is Amelia. I was sent here to re-educate your mind and body in the ways of women." And with that she reached into her bag and pulled out a horse whip. Smack. Smack smack. Smack smack smack. Sasuke Sharingan appeared for the first time. Amelia said, "So I see you got your eyes now and remember everything. That's good." She then proceeded to strip and have her way with him. Every time he tried to protest he go wiped Aegean. If he did not do what she said, another whip. 3 hours later Amelia came out of the room and said, "Well, I done all I can do. He has the second level of the Sharingan now, so that's good. If you ever need me again you know where to find me." And with that she left. A few minutes later Sasuke came out and saw Kakashi standing there and said, "I want to go home now." Kakashi said, "How do you feel?" Sasuke looked at Kakashi and flashed his Sharingan and said, "I feel like a man." Kakashi smiled. End of Kakashi Fantasy. It had been a week since Naruto first learned he does possess a little of the wood element. He has been practicing the only two wood elemental jutsu in the house and can perform both but not very good, and he had to actually be touching the trees for it to work, so it won't be very useful in battle, but it would help with prisoners. Even though Ino and Yukie had moved in he has not gotten to see them very much. The third allowed Yukie to start teaching etiquette to first-year female students at the academy. This is on top of her bi-monthly council meetings she has with the other foreign allied country diplomats with the village council, so she is gone a lot. Ino has also been hard to get see. Her family has still had her working at her family shop with the new inventory. Flashback. Tsunade was looking at the ground of the Kazama estate and Ino had just returned from working at her family shop and Tsunade said, "Ino, can I have a word with you?" Ino stopped and said, "Yes Tsunade-sama." Tsunade sighed and said, "Ino, how many times do I have to tell you since you are going to be family soon you can just call me Nekken so I won't feel so old. Anyways, how would your flower shop like some of the rare breeds we have growing here at Out Compound? I need someone to work on the gardens and I really don't want to hire a gardener. You know how much Naruto likes his privacy." Ino said, "I know, and that's one of the reasons I love him, but yeah, I can work on the gardens here and use the flowers for the flower shop, Nekken." Soon smiled and said, "Just tell your parents they can keep the profits and if they ever need any help to let us know because our family is not well known for it but we have enough money in accounts to buy almost all of Fire Country, but unlike other clans we don't flaunt it. I want you to make sure all our descendants know this." Ino smiled a sad smile and said, "You can count on me. Oh, before I forget, if you see Naruto before I do, my dad went in and put a buffer seal around Sasuke memories of what happened in the council and has been returned to active duty starting in 2 days. Poor dad had an episode like Naruto did when he came out and would not let go of mom for anything. I just wished I would have thought of the cure for Naruto like mom did for dad." Tsunade, not missing a chance to learn some new medical treatment, said, "So tell me, what is this cure she came up with?" Ino laughed and looked straight in Tsunade's eyes and said, "She screwed him." They both laughed. Flashback end. Team 9 had just walked into the village gates very tired. Gia said, "I want all of you to go to the hospital and get a physical and checked out. You showed your youthfulness on this mission. I am proud and decided to allow you to enter the Chunin exams next week. Until then you are all free." And he went to the Hokage office. Lee said as they all left for the hospital, "I still can't believe that unyouthful man had the legendary Raijin sword." Tenten said, "I know, I still can't believe what you did, Neji." Neji said coldly, "It was fated to happen." Flashback. Idate was on the ground panting as the missing leaf ninja stood over him preparing to kill him with the Raijin sword when Tenten threw a kunai at his legs forcing him to jump into the air. Lee appeared behind him and kicked him even higher and proceeded to use the leaf shadow dance on him. The nin used the speed from the attack to swing himself on a tree branch to fly back into the air for a soft landing on the ground. Neji appeared under him and got into the gentle fist position and attempted to close of his chakra holes but missed the ones in his right leg and instead shut of chakra to his crotch. Guy appeared after dealing with the other three ninja and did the only youthful thing. He gave him a quick death. Flashback end. Tenten laughed and said, "Fate my ass, you missed and that the whole point." Lee said, "Tenten, that is most unyouthful of you. Though that does bring me to ask you a question. What made you quit being a member of Neji fan club?" Tenten blushed and said, "I met a better man who actually appreciates me and is from a loving family that is growing." Neji said, "If what you say is true, then fate was kind to you." Lee, getting the wrong idea, started screaming as he said, "Oh, I did not. You had done such unyouthful things, Tenten. To be with child already. I must defeat this man that would deflower such a youthful person. If I cannot defeat him, I shall punch a log 1,000 times. If I cannot do that, I shall walk around the village on my hands 10 times. And he took off, forgetting about going to the hospital. Tenten put her hand to her face and said, "Why me?" Neji said, "Because fate wanted to be cruel." Tenten became enraged and said, "That's it. Where the hell is it?" Neji said, "Where is what?" Tenten with a twitch said, "That damn fate kunia that is up you ass." Neji said, "I don't know what you are talking about," and entered the hospital. Tenten followed him and walked up to the nurse's desk and said, "Our sensei sent us here for a physical." Just then Lee came barging into the hospital screaming, "Tenten, where are you?" He then saw her and said, "Tenten, tell me the name of the unyouthful man you are seeing." Tenten said, "Lee, stop. I am seeing Naruto Kazama." Quote. Lee said, "Yes, I will go and beat Naruto for deflowering a youthful girl like you," and took off. The nurse said, "So you need a physical and a pregnancy test. Right this way," and started to leave, not noticing the twitch Tenten had. Lee ran from the hospital searching for this Naruto Kazama who Tenten was with, and remembered that he met Sakura at the Kazama household and ran there. Naruto was working on Hiraishin no Jutsu without a kunia, with only a marker he could place on an object. Currently he was trying it with a two-tail fox summon, having it run around the house and him flashing to the position. Jiraiya said, "You are doing great, kid." Naruto said, "Thanks, Ero Sanin. I am glad you helped me come up with this idea. It helps to just slip that small seal paper on a moving object and bam, it works." Jiraiya drank a little sake and said, "You plan on using it on him during the test?" Naruto said, "Yeah, but I don't know if I can beat him there. I wish I could try this in actual combat before then, but I don't know anyone beside you and Granny who's fast enough to match his speed." A fist connected to Naruto's face and he went flying toward a tree and it broke from the force. Naruto slowly got up and saw Lee and said, "What the hell was that for?" Lee got into the iron fist style and said, "You know what you did to her, you most unyouthful person," and he charged Naruto and attacked with a leaf whirlwind. Naruto ducked and slapped a Hiraishin seal on Lee's back and backflipped away. Naruto stopped and said, "I don't know what you are talking about." Lee said, "You really are unyouthful to lie like that. She told me herself." And charged Naruto. Naruto sighed and used Hiraishin to appear behind Lee and punch him. Lee landed and said, "I see you are a master of speed. You leave me no choice. First gate. Kia. Second gate. Kia." Naruto was thinking, "Oh shit. Third gate. Kia," and then Lee disappeared. Naruto, not wanting to get hit, start flashing behind Lee constantly to avoid being hit. Several ninja felt the chakra from the gates opening and came running, including Tsunade, Shizune, the Hokage, Tenten, Ino who was taking a nap, and Kakashi. They all landed by Jiraiya and the Hokage asked, "What's going on?" Suddenly, fourth gate. Kia, and Kakashi pulled up his forehead protector and said, "Damn, they are moving. If I did not know better, I would swear Naruto was using Hiraishin no Jutsu." Jiraiya said, "He is. That boy in green came and said something about Naruto doing something to some girl and attacked Naruto." Tenten finally had enough and screamed, "Damn it, Lee, I have not fucked Naruto yet, so stop. Lee and Naruto both stopped and looked at Tenten. Jiraiya started writing. Everyone else was looking at Tenten right when Guy arrived and said, Tenten, you should not go around telling everyone about your unyouthful plans. Ino, who was in front of Guy, ducked as Tenten flew over her to get to Guy and put her hands around his neck trying to strangle him, screaming, I will show you the power of youth. Shikamaru walked in to deliver a message to Ino, saw the situation and said, troublesome women and their monthly hormones. Twitch, 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 twitch. Shikamaru suddenly found himself on the receiving end of 4 women beatdown. Naruto walked over with the now collapsed Lee and handed him to a still blue in the face guy. He said, I think he pulled a bunch of muscles from opening the gates. Arrow Sanin 200 back to back is my limit. And then he fell face first into Kakashi arms, who caught him. Everyone stopped when he collapsed and Tsunade and Shizune started taking care of Naruto and Lee. The third sighed and said, I am getting too old for this shit. At least the paperwork's done for the day. Shizune, after forcing a soldier pill into Naruto, picked him up with Tenten and Ino help and took him inside. Tsunade finished healing Lee and said, Guy, if I find out you teach anyone else how to open those damn gates, I will implant you into the Hokage Mountain. The third walked over and said, Guy's team recovered some of your stolen property on their last mission. He then handed her the Raijin and left. Tsunade sighed and said, well, I wonder what to do with you, as she walked into the house. Jiraiya finished writing in his notepad and Kakashi said, so is that for the next in the series? Jiraiya said, nope, I decided to start a new series based on Naruto and his little harem. It's going to be called Adventures of an Heir Volume 2. Volume 1 should be released tomorrow, but here you go. An advance copy. As he handed a new book to Kakashi. Kakashi giggled and left as he started to read. Yukie returned home from the academy and was going to her room when she saw the door to Naruto's room open and went to see him. When she got there, she saw Ino and Tenten striping Naruto out of his dirty clothes as he was semi-awake. Yukie said, what's going on? Ino said, Tenten teammate misunderstood something and attacked Naruto. Yukie said, is he going to be okay? Tenten said, yes, he just a little tired from it, so we were getting him out of these cloths so he could sleep. Yukie smiled and said, when you're both done, can I talk to you both in my room? After both girls put him to bed, they went to Yuki's room. Yukie was sitting at the head of her bed and both girls sat down at the foot of it. Ino said, so what did you want to talk about? Yukie said, I thought about what you said, Ino, about marrying Naruto and have kids, and I like the idea, but I got a few questions that might be personal before I completely agree. Tenten said, I also do, so I want to see if either of you know. Ino said, well, I hope I can answer them or any of us, so ask. Yukie said, why can't you have kids, Ino? Something's not right, because I noticed when you were moving in you had certain hygienic products. Ino sighed and said, I guess I might as well tell the truth to you both. I was hoping that it would not come to this, but you both have a right to know. Tenten said, what are you talking about, Ino? I have known you for years, but you act like I don't know anything. Ino said, the truth is, me and Naruto are not exactly what we appear. We both had to make a choice and now we have to live with that choice. As far as I know, the third, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Shizune, Sakura, Guy, Asuma, Kakashi, Yamato, my parent and Kurenai are the only ones who know. This is a huge village secret. Understand? Yukie said, am I allowed to hear this then? Ino said, I suppose for everything you done for us you do. Yukie said, what do you mean? I have not done anything. Ino said, not yet at least. You see, the choice Naruto and I made allowed us to come back from almost 13 years in the future. A lot of stuff is going to go down and a lot of people will die, so we came back to change certain events. Tenten said, I find that hard to believe. Do you have any proof? Ino said, I suppose it would be best if I showed you the price Naruto and I made and then explain it so you can know it's the truth. She then shape-shifted. Her two tails appeared and her nails and teeth grew. Yukie scooted away a little and said, what happened? Ino changed back and said, it all started when the Kyuubi attacked our village 12 years ago. Naruto father the fourth Hokage gave his life to seal Kyuubi into Naruto. The third for Naruto protection told all his family that's here now he died during the attack instead of the truth. Naruto grew up hated and abused. After the stuff that is going to happen happened, the Kyuubi told Naruto about a way to change everything. Kyuubi made he sent to a different dimension after another demon nearly killed her, so she was basically frozen in time. The Kyuubi said he would give his and his mate's life to send me and him back. But in return I would become the new two-tail lord of the cats and Naruto would become the new nine-tail lord of foxes and king of demons. And before you ask, we are not evil. We are the same people we always were. Tenten said, so both of you are demons? No, but what does that have to do with having kids? Ino said, because of the choice, if and when we have children they would have to live in the other realm called Makia. You see, we have both become basically immortal and can't have mortal children, so I have to use a demon birth control until we go to the other world in about 70 or 80 years. Yukie said, so you need regular humans to have kids to live here for you and then we just get left behind while you live in another world. Ino said, no, see Naruto found this out after we came back. When people die here they go to the other world and Naruto is basically the Hokage of a village there. He can request certain people and he wants to request all his friends and family to live there with us for eternity. Tenten said, so when we die we go to the other place and live Aegean with all our friends and family. Ino said, yes, and when any children finally die they join us as well. Tenten thought for a moment and said, that don't sound so bad, so why go through all the trouble of trying to change things? Ino said, we still want to live lives and memories here and make new friends. If everyone dies in the next 12 years a lot of possible children and friends would be lost. Yukie said, I understand. I thought you were just wanting to use this, but I see you actually care and want people to live long and happy lives. Ino smiled and said, yes. Tenten said, so I guess I am still in. I admit I don't know everything about you and Naruto now, but looks like I got a long time to find out. One way or another. Yukie smiled and said, why not? I don't have really anything to lose but time. So what happens that you want to change? Ino said, well, the first thing is the Chunin exams. And so Ino told them both about the things to come. After the depressing thing, Tenten said, I just thought of something. You have two tails and you say Naruto is the new nine tails, so does he actually have them? Ino laughed and said, yes, and they are cute. Yukie said, really? I want to see. Tenten, me too. So all three women got up and went to Naruto's room.